What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the full rankings for Dynasty Warriors 4. Every character is being ranked from worst to best, in my opinion, from Dynasty Warriors 4. If you've seen the best and the worst video, you know who are at the top and the bottom, but we still got to figure out who's in the middle and in what order. For those who don't know, I am ranking all these characters on 6 categories. Here they are for those who don't know. I feel like these are the most important categories when it comes to surviving in the game, doing well with the character. And then on top of that, the scenario that the characters were put in, for those who haven't seen the other videos, was a secluded, isolated test where I took each character at the Battle of Ealing, put them in the area where it's just you and your bodyguards, and how well could I use each character in this high pressure situation. Starting off at the bottom, the worst character from Dynasty Warriors 4, number 42, is Dion Wei, one of the slowest characters from the game, 100%. Absolutely not safe to use at all. The C's, don't even worry about him. I mean, you can't do anything. Muso's terrible. Just an overall terrible character. Moving on, above him, we've got Mr. Sauron at number 41. 4.25 overall for Mr. Sauron. Not a great start for the Shield Master. AoE is low, in my opinion. Dueling was I mean, you can only really rely on his Muso and his normal string. Not a very good character, very bad kid, and really slow. Moving on to number 40, we've got the genius himself, Mr. Sima Yi. And he is 100% one of the most unreliable characters in the game. Like, he might be a great strategist, and we can rely on that brain, but him swinging around that fan, no thank you. He just doesn't have anything that does really well. If you watch the worst video, I'll go more into it, but just not a great character, coming in at number 40. Then next up at number 39, we've got Dong Zhuo. His attack speed is absolutely garbage. I mean, he's a big boy, so I guess he's slow. Movement speed is a little bit better than I thought it was. He's still average with his Muso, and that's why he's so low at the bottom here at number 39. Next up, coming at number 8, we've got the Sleeping Dragon, Mr. Zhuge Liang, who had a huge improvement from the last game, but not good enough to bring him out of the worst characters in the game. Number 38 on the list. He's a fast character. He's decent. He's got an upgrade to his moveset, but it's just not an overall good character. You're not going to have a fun time with this character. You're going to get beaten down pretty easily, and that's why he's here at 38. Moving on to number 37, we've got the staff-wielding master himself, Mr. Zhang Jiao. Again, a similar theme. I think a lot of the characters from the old game got better in this one, but still, he's still a very tough character to use. He's not safe. He's not a great character. His C3 is decent sometimes, and he's just a below average character that I would avoid playing. Moving on to number 36, we got the big man, Mr. Meng Huo, the Muso master himself. One of the best ones from the game, 100%, but that is not enough to pull him out of the worst character position. He's absolutely terrible when it comes to his speed. You're really only waiting the red Muso spam. Other than that, I don't even want to use anything else. Next up, coming in number 35. Surprisingly, this character did terrible compared to the last game. Zhang Fei getting a huge nerf, I think, from that last game as he dropped down into one of the worst characters' position. His C3 is great, but you can't. It's not reliable under pressure. And the same thing with the rest of his charges. He just takes too long to get there to where he gets interrupted way too easy. His kit is designed for AoE, but he does not have the speed to get there. Next up, surprisingly, he did way better than he did in the last one. Instead of being the worst character from the last game, he's still in the list here, but Choo coming in number 34. He's still ungodly slow though, and some of his C's aren't that great to use, but his kit felt much better. He's got those normal string with the wide moves, and he's got decent moves in the game. He's not the safest character to use, but he's definitely a lot better than he was in Dynasty Warriors 3. Same thing with the next character, Zhurong, coming in at number 33, 6.17 overall average. Hell of a lot better than she was in Dynasty Warriors 3. My goodness, it feels like you can actually do some damage now with her Muso. Her attack speed is better, but her charge up, especially for her CFO, is extremely slow. Still below average overall, but definitely a step in the right direction for Zhurong. Next up, coming in number 32, and same overall as Zhurong, we've got Pang Tong with his ultimate Muso, 10 out of 10 rating, even though he still ends up towards the bottom of the list. His movement speed was faster than I thought, and his C6 is decent, but you can't get to it reliably. Everything else with the kit is absolutely unreliable. He's got janky movements. His C3 is okay if you can hit it, and that's all I have for Pang Tong. Moving on to number 31, 6.42 overall for Mr. Taichitsa. His AoE is decent. His normal string is really the only thing you need for the character. Muso isn't classic Muso. Muso, it's decent, and that's really all you have for him. His speed is decent, not super fast, but he's faster than I thought he was, and his attack speed is actually pretty good as well. Now, moving into the first character that we do not know who's being revealed. Number 30, starting off our list. Huge improvement from the last game, but she's still towards the bottom. Miss Diao-chan. But she did much better than she did in that last game, I would say. Movement and attack speed is great. Her AoE is decent, and her true Muso is absolutely amazing. But everything else isn't too reliable. I wouldn't rely on her normal string or her C3. Her C5 is good for 101s, but it can be very tough in a crowd. It's good to see her here at least a little better than that last game. Moving on to number 29, 6.92 overall for this character. Big boy. We've got Mr. Xiahou Yuan. Xiahou Yuan to me is a decently average character. He's got decent AoE. Normal string isn't too great. Very slow with his movement speed. C5 and C6 definitely not worth it. He's just an average character. Next up, coming at number 28, we've got, unfortunately, a tie with Mr. Xiahou Yuan. This character he just felt like he got nerfed, and that's going to be Mr. Gan Ning. He was in the top 10 for me for the last game, dropping all the way down to the 28th spot. He just felt so weak. I surprisingly struggled with him. His attack speed isn't fast enough to pull off his C's. His dueling was above average, and his Muso was the same. He just didn't feel as strong as he was. He felt like he got heavily nerfed in this one, and unfortunately, he's down here at number 28. Now, moving into number 27, a 7.42 overall for this character, we have Mr. Yuan Shao. He felt a little better than some of the other sword users, but still not too great. His AoE is okay. C6 is still good, but it's tough to get to in this one. He's not as fast as he used to be. And his Muso is decent, just solid damage, which is very similar to the other sword users. He just seems to be an average sword user to me in this game, and that's why he's here at 27. Moving on to number 26. Character didn't improve too much from the last game. She was decent, and that's going to be Miss Zenji. She's not safe to play under pressure in a big crowd. Her red Muso spam is good since there's so much AoE, but her C's are just not that great. C6 is good, but it's very risky to get there. Her normal string is easily interruptible by crowds. She's great at dueling, very, very good, because her normal string, instead of having the AoE effect, you get to hit them straight down into the ground, allowing you to get around them, and you can do damage on top of that with her C3, her C5. You're gonna struggle under pressure with her. Moving on to number 25, we've got the blending strategic warhead monster himself, Lu Meng, coming in, and he's a decent character. Most of his C's aren't too safe to rely on. Like, his C4 is okay, but not enough AoE to use in a crowd safely. C3 is good for duels, but in crowds, even in the small ones, you get offline, you're getting clipped. He's an average character across the board. The lowest thing was his speed, as he's seen. Not to be the fastest character, but he's a decent character. He just has a lot of vulnerabilities with a lot of his movements. Moving on to number 24, 7.67 overall for this character, we've got Mr. Sun Jian. Most of his scores are pretty good, at least above average, except for his kit rating. His C4, C5, and C6 are all just His C3 is okay for duels, but that's it. You're not using it for anything else. Pretty straightforward, but he's just not the safest person to use. It seems a lot of his moves will get you into trouble, and that's why his kit rating is so low. Next up, coming at number 23, we've got Mr. Huang Zhang, 7.75 overall rating. He's not too bad as a character. His attack speed and his charge attack speed seems to be a little higher than the others. C4 is good. His C6 is okay. Muso is decent. He has a little vulnerability at the end. His C3 isn't too good, not reliable for anything, and his C5 is okay, but his normal string is extremely fast and decently wide sweeping. He felt a little safer to use versus some of the other characters, and overall he was a pretty solid character, putting him here at 23. Next up, coming at number 22, we have Lu Xun. This guy is speedy. 10 out of 10 movement speed. This dude is the Flash reincarnate for Dynasty Warriors. He's probably the fastest moving character in the game. AoE is okay. Normal string is okay for AoE. C4 is good, but it's really not worth it at all. Same thing with the C3. He's not great for duels. Seems tough to aim in a way. His normal string and his Muso are the best things to rely on. Decent character, and he's here towards the higher end of the 20s. Moving on to number 21, we have Miss Da Qiao. Definitely a decent character. She's not super safe to use, but her normal string is really, really good. C6 is good, but she's just not fast enough in terms of her attack speed to pull it off. But she does have very fast movement and attack speed. She seemed to have gotten a little bit nerfed though. She wasn't as fast as she was in Dynasty Warriors 3. Her Muso is okay, but she's vulnerable after she finishes it. Her C4 and C5 are way too risky. I wouldn't use it at all. C3 is good for dueling, not crowds. and her AoE is actually above average from her C6, Muso, and normal string. That's what lands her here at number 21 with a 7.92 overall. All right, going into number 20, our top 20 list, starting off with a character who was in the top 10 for the last one, drops down to number 20. I think he was actually number 2 overall. Sun Quan coming in with an 8.33 overall rating. He felt safer than his father and much easier to use and direct. Great movement speed. His normal string is good. He feels safe and fast, and his movement speed really complements him. C3 is decent for duel. Muso is good, nothing too crazy, and again, he's just a solid character in this game. Solid 8.3 for Mr. Sun Quan. All right, next up we've got Xiao coming in at number 19, 8.42 overall for the character. She's not too bad in this game. AoE is okay, C4 is pretty good, C3 is great for dueling. She's got very fast attack speed and movement speed, almost getting the perfect 10 out of 10 with her speed. She can really get in and out of crowds or danger areas really easily. Her Muso has good AoE, C6 is deadly in 1v1s when it lands. She's a very good character. Yeah, 8.42 for Xiao. Number 19, let's go ahead and move on to number 18. Coming in number 18, we've got Mr. Jiang Wei, 8.5 overall. Great attack and movement speed, almost maxed out with that one, 9.5 out of 10. And his C3 is okay until you get offline, which seems to be a theme for a lot of these characters. C4 and C6 is bad, just don't use them. Normal string is great for AoE and fast enough to do safe, consistent damage. And his Muso is good like it was in the old game. He's a very safe, fast, fun character to use, and that's why he's here at number 18. Coming in number 17, we got the master of spears himself, Mr. Zhao Yun, who is one of the safest characters to play in this game. His AoE on his normal string is crazy good. C3 and C6 is C4 is definitely the best charge attack out of all three. Muso is iconic and great for duels. Relying on just a normal string is honestly good enough for Zhao Yun. He's very good. He doesn't have the best kit, but he doesn't have the worst kit either. So that's why it's down there at 7.5 for me. Moving on to number 16, 8.5 overall for Miss Sun Shangzhang. She didn't feel too great, to be honest. They definitely nerfed her speed. Her C3 is reliable for duels. Crowds, it's okay, but the range is way too small. C6, again, you just can't get to it. Muso is good, excels in duels. Normal string isn't very good. You have to rely on the Cs and Musos and crowds. And her movement speed doesn't seem to be as fast as before. I mean, she lands pretty high up on the list, I would say, but just seems not as strong as she used to be versus the old game. Next up, we've got a character with the exact same score as Sun Shangzhang, 8.58 out of 10, and that's going to be Mr. Zhang Liao. He is a very solid character. The only problem is he just has a slow attack speed, which renders his kit almost useless. His C3 is the most reliable with the Muso, and his C6 is good, just not gonna get it under pressure. His AoE is among the best in the game, 9.5 out of 10, but his attack speed really is what brings him down a ton. Moving over to number 14, 8.67 rating out of 10. We've got the chaotic Mr. Zhang He. Very solid character. AoE is great with his Muso. His C3 has a little bit of it. His C4 is good. Normal string is good. C1 is good as well. One of the best C1s in the game. Plus, he's extremely fast, making him viable to get in and out of dangerous situations. You can spam his C3 in a crowd and then C1 to jump in and out. Like, it's very easy to take advantage of. C6 is good, just not super reliable. He's a solid, chaotic character, and that's why he's here at number 14 for me. Moving on to number 13, we've got the handsome Zhou Yu. Solid scores all around for this character. Definitely a great duelist. His AoE is good on normal string. His C4 is so fun to use, but it's very dangerous. He's super vulnerable after landing in a crowd. C3 is good too. His Muso is solid, and you don't have that much vulnerability after you end with his Muso. Movement speed is fast enough to get out of it, even if you are vulnerable. And his attacks seem faster than the average person. He's just an overall solid character, 8.75 out of 10, towards the higher up, and he just missed my best characters video at number 13. Coming at number 12, we have Mr. Ma Chao. Again, extremely fast attack speed, 8.75 out of 10. His ease of use is a 10 out of 10. You can pick him up and play him so easily. In this situation, in crowds, his C3, C4, and C5 are completely useless. Dueling, his C3 and C5 1-on-1, that is a deadly dude right there. He's one of the best 1v1 characters. You don't really need to use his C4. That's why his kit rating is so low, because it's like some of his Cs you don't really need at all. His Muso is great for sweeping sweeping away most enemies and creates a lot of space. Ma Chao is great. If you've seen the video, you know about it. Let's go ahead and move on to number 11, which is 8.83 overall for Mr. Guan Yu. He surprisingly got through the trial. His Musou is really good, super reliable. AoE is really good as well. His kit is pretty good. His dueling is good. He's overall just felt like a really good character to use. His attack and movement speed isn't the best, but the character is pretty fun and pretty safe to use. Now, jumping into the top 10, we've got an 8.92 overall rating for Mr. Sun Suk. AoE is pretty good. His kit is pretty decent as well. He has a lot of good AoE stuff to do damage to enemies. His normal string is very reliable. He got that beat down feeling to it. And his Musou is a solid mix between pinpoint damage and AoE. And he's so fast that he can get away when landing from his Musou. Very good character overall. And he lands here at the top 10 for me. Coming in number 9, we've got Mr. Cao Cao. One of the fastest characters in the game in terms of his attack speed. His movement speed is above average. That's why it averaged out to a 9 for me. But he's got that snappy, quick sword movement that is just abusable. He's one of the easiest characters to use in my opinion because of that. That leads you to feel safe in dangerous areas. His Musou is great if you need to use it. His C4s are big AoEs, and he's just a very easy, fun character to use. Cao Cao is absolutely abusable when it comes to Dynasty Warriors 4. Next up, coming in number 8, we've got the Barbarian Wei Yan. Hands down, like I said, the second best C3 in the game. It shreds, making dueling extremely easy. 10 out of 10 dueling. His AoE, everything in his kit is built for AoE, even his C3. His C3, you're hitting tons of people. Attack speed is above average. His movement speed is semi-average. It's the worst part of the character, but everything else, he's got 2 solid 10 out of 10s because the character is just amazing. Musou is classic and good. Wei Yan's one of the best characters from Dynasty Warriors 4. 9.08 average. Let's go ahead and move on to number 7. Next up, coming in number 7, we've got a 9.17 out of 10 for Liu Bei. Very good character, fast enough to use his normal string in C6 regularly, and his movement is fast enough to slip away after an attack or a Musou if you're vulnerable. His C3 is good. Absolutely a great character. He's great at 1v1s as well. Good character. You're not going to struggle too much with Liu Bei. And he just felt overall like a much better character than he did in the last game. Moving on to number 6, probably the most improved character from the last game is Huang Gai. I don't know. I felt like I absolutely destroyed the trial with him. He has that beatdown feeling that Sun Tzu has. His normal string and his C6 are absolutely goated. Musou is a good counter, and you can rush down an opponent if you need to. His kit rating is not too bad as well. The only caveat is maybe his C1 and blowing up your own people. But other than that, just a very, very good character. His movement speed isn't too crazy, but his attack speed just complements the brutality of the weapon very, very well. Moving on to number 5, we've got Miss Yue Ying. AoE is great. C6 is super deadly, absolutely destructive, and comboing into her Musou is very, very powerful. C3 is great for duels and extremely powerful. Her C1 you can abuse as well from a distance. Her dueling, I gave her a 10 and a couple of 9.5s around there as well. 9.42 for Yue Ying. She absolutely destroys, and she is very, very fun to use. Moving on to number 4, we've got Zhou Tai with the exact same rating as Yue Ying. 10 out of 10 for dueling and his Musou. You're gonna shred characters. He's like Wei Yan on steroids. Attack speed is extremely fast, especially on his C3. You absolutely shred. It's just so fast. There isn't many caveats into his kit except his C5 and 6 and maybe his movement speed, and overall he's just a destructive character. Moving into number 3, we got the Eye Patch Man. 9.42, tied with the last 2. Xiahou Dun coming in. Ease of use in Musou clears out with a 10 out of 10 in both sections. He's a destructive character. His AoE on his normal string is absolutely beautiful, and his normal string is one of the best in the game. His Musou is extremely safe to use. His C6 and kind of his C1, you don't really need a C1, are the only things that's really bad about the kit. C3 is great as well. He's got a brutalizing type of character movement that's super easy to use and abuse enemies, and I absolutely cleared the trial with him with almost no fear. Xiahou Dun is one of the best characters from this game, 100%, and definitely deserves the number 3 spot in my opinion. Coming in with a silver medal, we've got a 9.5 overall rating for Mr. Xu Huang. Like I talked about in the video, just an absolute king of AoE. His Musou is so destructive. His ease of use is easy. His kit rating, everything about the character is really good except for maybe his C1. But his C3 is extremely goated. It's a mini version of his Musou, which absolutely clears enemies super easily. Normal string is great as well. Attack speed is actually pretty fast for the giant axe that he has. Again, easily ripped through the trial with his overpowering moves. To me, he is among the best in Dynasty Warriors 4. And finally, coming in at number 1, we've got a 9.58 for the monster himself, Mr. Lu Bu, which technically means he got worse in this game, but his C3 is among the best, and he's 100% the best character from Dynasty Warriors 4. I almost put Shu Huang above him. I mean, I don't know, Shu Huang just felt like a different animal in this game, but Lu Bu is just OP as usual. He's very overpowering, very fast movement. His attack speed has that snapping feeling with that giant halberd. His AoE's at the wazoo, and he's absolutely the best character. Super OP in the game, and it shouldn't be a surprise to see Lu Bu at the top of the list once again. And that's all I have for the video here, guys. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, definitely appreciate it. Like, comment, or subscribe. These are the full Dynasty Warriors full rankings, and we'll be doing Dynasty Warriors 5 here really soon. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. If you guys are, let me know down below what you guys want to see next, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.